So what we have here is one of the prime examples of data collecting and information in a traditional way. This basket here tells a story. It tells a story about creation. It tells a story about the time of when it was made. And this basket was actually made right around the time the pandemic had started. The top half with the moon on it was made in February of 2020. The significance of the moon is really important to us because that tells us when times are going to change, when harvest seasons are coming, when it's time to move, and letting us know what our year is going to be like as far as supplies and foods, where our animals are going. And below that, we have the sky, and we have the She Who Watches emblems looking in four directions. And she is a significant figure in our culture. She was a Bear Clan chieftain who had taught our people how to thrive and how to live in these lands, how to, use the food, how to build homes, how to practice our cultures. And the legend was that she was tricked by Spili, a coyote, trapped her in the mountainside and condemned her to watch over the river, watch her people as they moved on without her. When I heard the story, it helped me connect to my ancestors in a way I didn't realize it. And this hat, in a lot of ways, is a story of our people, story of survival. And I don't know, what's going to happen to it down the road, but I know that this was something that I wanted to leave, a legacy that I wanted to leave for my children to tell. Because that's what our people do, is we mark these stories and we try to remember what was important. And that's what a lot of our history and our data is not just what we're saying, but the emotions and the feelings that come behind it.
Our data has been woven into our traditional art forms since time immemorial and reflects the unique stories and experiences from each tribal community.
We've always been scientists. We've always been collecting data, sharing what we've learned, disseminating the data. Just like when we collect our seeds, we evaluate how well they worked the year before, how well they fed us, and how well are they going to feed us the following year. And we share that, we disseminate that, and disseminating data is a big word, but it's just telling the story of what we've always done and what we still do.
Dissemination is a critical aspect of data sovereignty. Being able to determine who has access to our information, when and for how long, is a part of the process of decolonizing data.
So Indigenous populations, scholars, Black and Brown brothers and sisters, we've come together in a statewide and national movement for decolonizing. This is the work of the Indian Collective, and they give us this great roadmap for replacing these white dominant Western settler colonial based systems that perpetuate Indigenous erasure and genocide, replacing those systems with those of community of care. And what I love about this is it's a framework of justice that is rooted in actions that are life-affirming and generative.
And I think, speaking of ourselves and about ourselves in the most positive light is the only and right way to do it. I truly am proud to be who I am and of my identity, and I know it's something that we continuously struggle with, living in two worlds.
And as Indigenous people, our values are inherently life-affirming and generative. And this counters the damage of colonialism, of white supremacy, of logics that have been embedded within this nation state from settlers who have created systems for their benefit and for the harm and genocide of Indigenous people. So we see this in data. We see this play out in data.
We've always been scientific. It's just difficult to know how to carry on those traditions while also living in the society we are in today, because in the past we used our information to know what the land could give us, what we could take, and how we could move throughout the year.
Data sovereignty is us owning our story, right? And for us to tell our own story. And when you're from a community that there are these drastic disparities that do come up around health, it's easy to put that on the individual. It's too easy for dominant society to put that on the individual, but it doesn't tell the whole story that we have this disparity.
Having access to the whole story means it's not just about the actual data, it's also about the context around the data.
In this way, we're addressing massive gaps within Western-based systems of data gathering, data collection, and the overall data ecosystem. And in this way, we're able to capacitate ourselves as a community to, really gather and dream into what's already been inspired into us by our ancestors, the love that our ancestors have for us, the beauty that we have within us, and the contributions that we can make to not just people of wellness, but to wellness in the land, wellness in the earth.
Here in the Pacific Northwest, we had these strands of knots and strings that would be tied throughout the year, and that would be a record of, just business, whatever the tribe was doing at the time. And the East Coast, we have wampum belts that were passed through the Iroquois nations, and even just the way we dressed and presented ourselves, the way we wore our hair, the way we wore our feathers, like for me, covering my hair, or just the clothes that we wore, the names we gave when we introduced ourselves, it all told something about us. But all of this was knowledge that was passed on through word of mouth, through interactions with community, and it was important for us to have those connections.
We decide that as a people, and when we decide that, that's really what data sovereignty and data justice is all about. It's us driving the stories, sharing the stories, and gleaning the teachings from those stories.
We get to tell that story that a community that is rooted in Indigenous values is a community that is well, that is cohesive, that is thriving.
Abigail Echohawk says, when we think about data and how it's been gathered, is that for marginalized communities, it was never gathered to help or serve us. It was primarily done to show the deficits in our communities, to show where there are gaps. And it's always done from a deficit-based framework. We talk about how our communities have the highest rates of obesity, have the highest rates of diabetes, highest rates of infant mortality, how our people may be experiencing high rates of opiate misuse. What they don't talk about is the strengths of our community. What we know, particularly for Indigenous peoples, is that there was a genocide and assimilation policies and termination policies that were perpetuated against us. If they had worked, we wouldn't be here. And so we were always strength-based people who passed on and continued knowledge systems regardless of people who tried to destroy us.